He's the co-leader, I kid you not, folks, of Indivisible Twin Cities. Max was just talking about the Twin Cities. You're saying the divisible Twin Cities.
I'm just saying. I'm not trying to divide the Twin Cities. I'm just saying. It doesn't. It feels like Minneapolis is really only they're the only ones holding up their end of the bargain.
The co-leader of Indivisible Twin Cities is Lisa Erbes. Lisa, we got to get your perspective on this. Where in the Twin Cities do you live, and do you really believe that one is greater than the other?
I live in St. Paul, and occasionally I cross the river and go into Minneapolis.
Yeah, I tell you,
from time to time. Yeah.
I love it. Listen, Lisa, we have you here talking about Election Day. What do you think what's the forecast for the voter turnout? Like, I just said, there's no president on the line.
Yeah.
There's no governor. There's no senator on the line. Like, I understand this isn't a marquee year, but where do you think the turnout's going to be?
Minnesota has one of the largest voter turnouts in elections anyway. We always are at the very top of the list. So that's always good. But for these types of elections where it's more local based, the turnout isn't as great. And personally, I think that's kind of messed up a little bit, because the elections that people are going to be voting on tomorrow really, really impact their lives. I mean, these things are things that you will be dealing with pretty much every day in your life. Whereas the more national elections, yes, they're very important. Don't get me wrong, but I think these elections kind of get a bad rap.
Yeah. Do you feel like could you expand on that a little bit? Do you feel like people kind of just push these smaller elections
I think
to
they
the
do.
side? And why is it important to vote in your local
You
election?
hear people say a lot, well, my vote doesn't matter, and that type of thing, which especially in these local elections, the differences between votes can be really small, and so every vote really does matter. And the fact is that, for example, if you're voting for school board members, for example, and a lot of people are like, I don't know who to vote for. Well, it's not that hard to do just a little tiny bit of a Google search to figure out which candidates you might or might not want to be on the school board, making decisions about the education of your children. I mean, that's a big deal. And people who are voting for city council positions, those are the people who are deciding how your local taxes are going to be spent. So you really should care about who's making those types of decisions. And then there's several referendums that are on different ballots. We had 2 in St. Paul. Those things, again, that's where they're asking the voters to make the decision about that particular issue. So, yeah, it's a big deal.
Absolutely. I know that there are these down ballot things, but for those residents in the Twin Cities, in Minneapolis and St. Paul, the big ones are the mayoral elections. These are ranked choice voting elections. Last week we had one of our colleagues to come in and talk about ranked choice voting. I know that this is a system that you're familiar with. Can you just give us an abridged version of what to expect? Because I think there's going to be a lot of people that go to the polls tomorrow and they're like, wait, what? I have to choose 3? Like, it can be a little confusing. Can you just basically break it down for people what to expect tomorrow?
It's really not that difficult. And the thing is, you don't have to do it. So that's not required. So when you go in and, for example, in St. Paul, I think we had 4 people on the ballot, 4 or 5. But me personally, I didn't rank all of them. I ranked 3 of them. So you can do that if you want to. So, and it's really just who's your first choice. If that person doesn't get it, who's your second choice, and then who's your third choice. And it's. I wish we did ranked choice voting nationally, and I'd love to see that day, because it really does. It expands how you can vote and get the next best person if your person doesn't quite make it. That way you can feel like you're voting for the person you really do care about. But if for some reason that person doesn't get enough votes, then maybe your second choice will get the job.
Yeah.
Now, we've been talking a lot about people that maybe are pushing these elections to the side, but there'll be a lot of people out there that this is their first time voting as well, that are super excited to be part of the electoral process. What is kind of like, if someone's feeling anxiety, because, a lot of us don't leave the house anymore these days. We don't know how to act in public spaces. We don't know what to expect in these kind of situations. If someone's feeling anxiety about their first time voting, what is something to kind of assuage those worries?
Well, I think one of the things that and again, this is a Minnesota thing. It's true all over the country, but I really see it here in our elections, is that the people who are working at the election, at the poll sites, are mostly volunteers, and they're really dedicated to the process. Yeah. And they want to make sure that it all goes smooth, that things are handled properly, that there's no issues. And I've worked the polls before, and you do see people, they might mess their ballot up and then they have to do it again. And, just little things like that, or they can't figure out which way to scan the ballot into the machine. And there's always somebody there to help you. So, I'd say I like to think that when people first start voting, if it's their very first time, if they're 18, 19 years old and they've never voted before, it's like the best habit to get into is to just make that your thing where you show up every time the polls are open.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I know you kind of touched on this earlier, but I just kind of want to reinforce this. What would your message be to those people that just say, yeah, well, listen, my vote doesn't matter, and I got to go to work, I got to make dinner for the kids. Like, the polls, I think we have a graphic here. They're open from when, 7 a.m. to 7 or 8 p.m. I know we got some, like, there's a lot of people that feel like they probably cannot make it within that window, however big of a window that is. There it is, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Yeah. What would your message to those people be?
Well, first of all, that's why we have early voting, to make it more convenient for people so that they can hopefully go when it's maybe more convenient for them. They can go to the polls. They can get it done. I voted on Friday. So that's one thing, right? So there is some flexibility into when you can go. If you can't get to the polls, you can do a mail-in ballot, or take it and drop it off at the voting site. So there's other ways to vote besides physically going to the polls on Election Day. And typically, it's especially in these elections where the turnout's not as high, it doesn't take that long. You usually can get in and out pretty quick. So that's about, I like I said, I think people just need to make it a habit.
Yeah,
for sure. I've been voting since before I was even eligible. I voted for Kelly Clarkson in the American Idol, the first American Idol. I called in and voted for Kelly Clarkson, expressing my rights, my excitement to be a part of the electoral process.
There were lawsuits about statements like the ones you just made.
What do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. Now, I think a lot of people, when they think of these local elections, are only thinking about like mayoral races and stuff like that. But there's all types of things on these ballots. Like, what are some of the things outside of like mayoral elections that are going to be on some of these ballots?
Well, there's a kind of a big school board race going on for Anoka-hennepin schools. There's 3 seats that are open. A lot of money has been spent on that race. So that's really important, really critical. Like you said, there's the mayoral races, and there's some city council seats, and some of the cities not like we didn't have any in St. Paul, but like I think in Bloomington they've got some city council seats that are being voted on. So, yeah, there's important stuff out there.
For sure.
Lisa, we were talking off air. You're from the great state of Georgia. We hear it in your voice. It's a really beautiful. It's a peach of a voice you got there. You like the peach reference there too.
Yeah.
How did you become involved with Indivisible Twin Cities? So from Georgia to an organization that really it's a very strong Minnesota name that they have there. What does the organization do? How did you become involved with them?
I got involved. Well, I've always been very politically, I guess I'd say active. I've always been very interested in politics most of my life. So when I moved here in 2016 during that presidential election. And in 2017, I wanted to get more politically involved. So I was looking around for some things, and I wound up at the time, it was Indivisible St. Paul meeting, and they were looking for somebody to help like administer their Facebook page. And I went, oh, I can do that. And that's how I got, and now here I am. So we merged together with 2 other Indivisible groups, smaller groups, back, I think it's been 2 years now. I can't remember because the time goes so fast. And that's when we created Indivisible Twin Cities, because we felt like we needed to have a little bit bigger reach. At that time, there actually wasn't an Indivisible group in Minneapolis. There was St. Paul, we had an Edina group, and we had a Roseville group, and we all came together to create Indivisible Twin Cities. And it's just grown crazy growth, especially this year.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Back to you're an expert. You're an expert voter.
Well, I don't know
an
about
expert
that.
on voting. But back to like the newbies there. Like if say someone like my good friend Fax-Muller maybe moved to Minneapolis 2 years ago. He doesn't know where his again, not to be confused. I'm maxx-fuller. This is Fax-Muller. No relation. He maybe moved to Minneapolis 2 years ago. Doesn't know where his polling place is. Like where do you find that type of information? Like polling place, registration, stuff like that. Like that basic information
It is
that some
so
people might not know.
easy. You go to mnvotes.org, and that's run by the Secretary of State's office, and it has everything you need to know. You just put in your address. It tells you where your polling place is. It tells you what's going to be on your ballot. You can print out a ballot, a sample ballot, so that you kind of know what you're going to do if you want to take that in with you. So, yeah, it's that easy.
That's awesome.
When do you expect we'll know the results of these mayoral races in both the Twin Cities? You think this is going to be like in the wee hours in the morning, or you think we're gonna know pretty quick here?
I have no idea. I really don't. Especially in Minneapolis, there's quite a few candidates, and so the ranked choicing stuff might come into play, and I think that makes things go a little longer. So, no idea.
Yeah.
If people want to find out more about Indivisible Twin Cities and all the stuff you guys do, where can they find out more?
At www.indivisibletwincities.org, which is a lot to type. And the word indivisible is so hard to spell. But indivisible-twincities.org.